With this video, we're going to go through a calculation for determining the enthalpy of a reaction. How you can figure out the delta H of a reaction from your data. Remember, the enthalpy of the reaction is going to be able to tell you whether or not this is an exothermic, so a heat releasing, or an endothermic, so a heat absorbing reaction system. So we're interested in how heat is flowing throughout our reaction. For this example, we're just going to see how sodium chloride dissolves in water, see how that affects the temperature of the solution. That temperature change is going to tell us how this dissolution of our salt, whether it is an exothermic or an endothermic process, how heat is flowing throughout this system. Okay, so we're going to need the molar mass of sodium chloride. We're also going to need the total mass of salt that we used in this particular experiment. We also need the total mass of water used in this experiment. So if we know the exact volume of water that we used, and we're going to make the assumption that the density of water is 1 gram per milliliter, we can get an exact mass for our water sample that we're using. Specific heat there, the value C, again that's a known constant value. That's telling you how much energy it takes to heat 1 gram of water by 1 degree. And we also need to know what the temperature change was in our reaction, right? Measure the temperature before you start, then add your salt, and then measure the temperature after that's completely dissolved, and you get a temperature change. Now that's interesting, we've got a temperature drop for our particular dissolution. So now we can use all of that information then to figure out the Q of the solution, so how heat was transferred in our reaction system. So we've got our total mass of 22 grams, that's the mass of the salt plus the mass of the water, times our specific heat value, that constant value there, times our change in temperature, and it is very important that we remember the sign there. We saw a drop. So overall we have a negative 129 joules for the Q of the solution. We want the enthalpy of reaction, so we need negative Q of the solution divided by the number of moles of salt dissolved in the volume of water used in the experiment. So we will have negative 129 joules divided by the moles of sodium chloride. We work out moles by taking the 2 grams mass of salt and dividing that by the molar mass of NaCl. This results in an enthalpy of 3.77 kilojoules per mole, a positive value. So that tells us that the dissolution of sodium chloride is an endothermic process, which makes sense. We saw a drop in the measured temperature of the solution from the start of our experiment to the end of our experiment. So heat energy was being absorbed from the solution into the reaction.